afternoon. Welcome back to the Knights of Chiefs Kingdom. I'm your host, Caleb Worsham, and today we have a special guest, Emily Broadway.
Whoop, whoop. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining this podcast.
Absolutely.
So this past weekend didn't go according to plan, unfortunately. It was one of the biggest I wouldn't say it wasn't one of the biggest chokes. I would still think that Super Bowl 55 or the Bengals and the Chiefs game was the biggest choke.
I don't necessarily consider this a choke, but I do consider it just a flat-out bad performance. Because, like, the Bengals, well, even the Tampa Bay Super Bowl I'd also put in this category, but the Bengals was definitely a choke because we were leading. And, I mean, we were leading parts of this past game, but it was just all mostly close. Like, it wasn't necessarily we were dominating.
Right. I just think there was definitely some bad calls and just miscommunication between the coaches, especially with the offense coordinator and Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if we would actually be able to make a touchdown if we would have went for it on fourth, but our special teams during the Colts game was absolutely awful, except for our punter. Our punter actually got let me pull it up real quick.
Did he get the special teams AFC special teams of the month?
Yep.
Which is shocking considering, like, you would think like some kicker would get that, or like someone who maybe like scored, like who did like a punt return that was a touchdown. Like, maybe I don't know who would have gotten that though in the month, but like
right.
I was honestly shocked that was our punter. It's also low-key kind of sad because that means we're using our punter a lot, which would mean our offense isn't doing its job to the full front of it.
And I feel like we're often pressured by the defense when our offense goes out there. Even though we don't have Tyreek Hill, I still think we can still be fired up. Like we were fired up against Arizona. Second week, our offense kind of died down against the Chargers because that Charger defense, they were pretty tough. And then it was just a defensive battle. And it was just a miracle, like I said from last week, I'm trying to think of his name, but number 35, that pick six interception saved that game.
Oh, yeah. Don't remember his name, but I remember it was one of the Jay Watsons. The other Jay Watson from the Chargers game that was on offense, he also scored a touchdown there, which actually helped, which was right before the pick six, that was the 99 yards, which actually helped change the momentum. Those two plays in itself helped completely change the momentum of that game to help us win. Right.
And I just felt like this last game we were stalling really, really bad. I mean, they were not going to get this wrong, but there were some good plays with the Colts. Like Travis Kelce made that I personally believe that was not a completion, 2-point conversion that they attempted. But, you know, as a Chiefs fan, I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. But statistically, I was like, that does not look like it counted. But, you know, it worked somehow.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to get to the negative of that game just in a moment. But, like, there were some positives, like our defense absolutely had a phenomenal performance. Were there some things they could have done better? Yes. But they actually pretty much held on, and they've actually, even though we've had so much personnel change, and with Willie Gay being out due to the suspension, they actually absolutely brought it. And I don't know how many sacks we got from that game, but it felt like we actually got a good number of sacks. Frank Clark gained his first one from the season. I think Chris Dunlap, I believe, got one.
Yeah, I believe so. But
I'm trying to remember who else,
I think it was George Karofris. I think that's how you say his last name.
Wait, did he get a sack?
I think so.
Oh, yeah?
Because, yeah, it was number 56. That was him, definitely.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of his. Like, ever since just watching him in training camp and seeing him, like, I want to see him keep improving, but he completely has this motor of, like, just go.
Yeah,
like,
this guy he's like a big engine, and he keeps he's like a steamroller. He keeps going. I actually did put Frank Clark as MVP Player of the Week because just the way that he looks, and he was playing healthy and getting that first sack. He just looked pretty good, because in the previous years I've seen him just not playing like the best, but I thought this was one of the best games I've seen Frank Clark played. Even though it was one sack, I'm looking forward to many more sacks after in the coming weeks.
Oh, I completely agree. He changed his eating habits, and he had the tough conversation with Andy Reid about how he's been underperforming since, like, especially that Super Bowl.
Right.
But like, he's absolutely, like, throughout preseason and training camp and all of that, like, he's absolutely had his mindset on I'm going to be the best Frank Clark I can be. You know, he got this nickname during the Super Bowl, and he might have actually gotten it while he was with the Seattle Seahawks before, but it's Frank the Shark Clark. You know, I smell blood in the water. That's a famous quote from him in that Super Bowl, like, playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, this year I've seen him get more he may have not gotten sacked till this past game, but he's got more pressures. He's absolutely just trying to play force. And he's actually been this is the best leadership I've seen from him, because especially like Georgia, there's like one other guy I don't remember, but he'd actually help mentor them like after training. Like, they'd be staying after training camp, which are very long and tedious and very hard days, you know. But they'd be staying after training camp and just getting extra reps and just working on like technique and all that, which is great. It was just great to see. So.
Yeah, and, you know, even after practices and stuff like that, Frank Clark, he's been hanging out with, you know, the rookies too, including them, and just welcoming them into the Chiefs Kingdom. But not just that, but just, you know, being an amazing person, and just, like you said, Emily, changing his life around from alcohol and just his eating habit. He just feels really good. And I have a prediction that he may get a sack to Tom Brady. I'm hoping.
I hope he gets like 2 or 3.
Yeah. I did play Madden 22 on my Xbox, and I did do a simulation. No, it was Madden 21 when we went to Super Bowl 55, and this was when Frank was supposedly a little healthier than last year.
Yeah.
I was actually able to get 5 sacks when I was playing Frank Clark, and just sacked. But, you know, that's just a video game. We're talking about real life.
The thing about the Bucs, though, like, just kind of looking forward, is that, like, their O-line has suffered some major injuries. Like, they've had a couple people out here and there, and it's been a complete mess. So, that's going to be one of the key things, is how does our defensive line get absolute pressures on Tom Brady? Like, how often can they get on him? How often can they pressure on him? If they can get a tip off the ball, that'd be great. You know, like, just I want to see how they perform against a very iffy O-line for the Bucs.
But yeah, we'll definitely talk more about the Bucs game. But right now, let's talk about the report after the Colts game. So, unfortunately, one of the things that happened was Chris Jones. There was an unsportsmanlike conduct call.
Yep.
I don't know what was said. I didn't even see him like speaking, but I guess a ref just saw him like, you know, talking, and they just pulled the flag, and 15-yard penalty that basically sealed the game.
Yeah.
And it was a tough call. Like, I was so disappointed. And Chris Jones, I felt bad for him because he felt so guilt-tripped, but at the same time, I'm just like, just keep your mouth shut.
Well, I mean, like, he does take individual guilt for that. Like, you know, that's the great thing about our leaders, is that when things don't go wrong, they're not necessarily pointing fingers of, oh, this receiver didn't do this, the refs did this. I mean, yeah, you're probably going to get fined if you say the refs didn't do that, you know?
Right.
That's the NFL for you, but like, they do take individual responsibility, and honestly, I think, especially for most of the time, if not all the time, I think they're very sincere about it. And the whole thing about the Chris Jones, I'm still waiting for the report to come back from the NFL refs to see what they think they heard. Because, like, I saw his mouth move, but I didn't think what he was saying was bad. Or, like, that bad to be that called. And I'm like,
right.
It's football. You can have some smack talk. And the thing about that, though, is I wish he had shut his mouth because he was right in front of the refs. Like, if you were, like, away from the refs, you would have gotten away with it, you know?
Right.
But just, if you, especially you're in front of the refs and you're not Tom Brady, just keep your mouth shut, please.
Right. And the thing about that is that they have technology, especially drones. Like, if they have like mics all around. They can pick up anything that is being said or anything that moves. And they can go back and say, this guy is taunting this guy in some way. Like, even if it's like a little sign, like what I heard the other day is that you told me that I'm going to use Texas Longhorns, for example. If you do the horns down, that's a penalty on sportsmanlike conduct.
Because according to Texas, apparently that's as bad as, like, pulling your middle finger or something.
Right. Yeah, but we're not here to talk about that. But at the same time, it's like
it's kind of the same concept.
It's these little things that impact a game. And it can just really turn the whole game and tables around.
Oh, yeah. And that's because it's so, like, iffy, like, you know, what I can say to you, it may offend you, but it might not offend,
okay.
Joe. But, like, you know, it's just very interesting. Sometimes I think you should not be cussing out, people. That's obviously a black line, but, like,
right.
Sometimes it's, like, gray. It's not just black and white. There's a lot of gray area to what I said and what is acceptable. So, like, and I think that's just where that went wrong. So.
Right. And then also our kicker, Chiefs kicker, Matt. His first name's Matt, but I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Amadenia? I don't know. But he missed an extra point in the first half and a 34-yard goal before Ryan led the decisive drive.
Yeah.
And immediately after this game, Matt was cut from the team just because he could have made those points. Those were pretty easy, but just as a Kansas City Chiefs, that is just unacceptable. And
right.
I just felt bad for the guy, but at the same time, we just need to find ways to improve our team too.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I just think that if there was a chance for him to get better, I would still let him to be on the team. But at the same time, if there's no room for improvement, then yeah, I could see the point there. But hopefully we can get Bucker back, because I've been keeping updates on Bucker's injury. Yes and no is the answer from Andy Reid on the media part. So right now I'm just praying and hoping that we get Bucker back.
He came back to practice, I think, yesterday or the day before. So at least he's back to practice. And on the whole thing about releasing the kicker, the unfortunate thing is the NFL's a business, and if you're not helping the team win, because you get money from the more you win,
scoring touchdowns and points.
So if you're missing your points, it's unfortunate. It's the unfortunate part of the whole business, though. Right,
because there's a lot of betting that goes into it too, and people lose money if that happens. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's the harsh thing about the NFL, is that people put their hopes in this one player, and they absolutely do, and eventually they have to figure something out. Is this player? It's kind of like the Cowboys' backup player is seeing what to do better than Dak Prescott.
Cooper Rush, let's go.
But I just think that's interesting how their team is, going with a backup. You just have to find your right player who has that momentum and mentality to, go win a game. Right. But I feel like the Chiefs can turn around and learn from this loss, and they can, go undefeated.
Oh, yeah.
From now on. We just got to get through the Bucs this week, or coming weekend.
Can we talk about the offense during the Colts, though?
Yeah.
There's a little bit to discuss there, just because, on Twitter I saw, it was where I think Juju was running this route, but apparently McCole Hardman got confused on the play or something like that, and he ended up, I don't know what exactly happened, but like he ended up just not going his route, and that caused some miscommunication and misfire from Mahomes, if I remember correctly. And then we also have another thing that was so detrimental towards the end of the game was Travis Kelce's catch, where he had his hands up in the end zone, and he just barely missed it. And it just, if we would have scored that touchdown, we would have won the game.
We would have, but yeah. I mean, the Colts are, I know we could have won that game easily, but I just think that we just, we over or underestimated them, and we just, I wouldn't say we got cursed, but I felt like we did. Like, someone paid the refs to, alter the game, find any
No, you use that excuse for when you lose to Brady.
Right. Yeah, that's a good example.
I'm looking up the stats because there was actually, when I was talking about the defense, so the Colts' best offensive player is Jonathan Taylor. He's a running back. And if I remember correctly, we actually stopped him a couple of times, and we actually kept the stats to very limited of what it was, if I remember correctly. Like, that was actually a very key highlight for a very young, and we also have some other injuries too, like Trent McDuffie, who's a rookie, who he's only played like 21 snaps in that very first game, and then he got injured because of the Cardinals turf. But on those 21, he absolutely did not have a completed catch on him. Like, he absolutely did phenomenal as the debut, and I cannot wait till he gets absolutely healthy and gets back. But when I'm saying that is like they did a fantastic job on their biggest threat. So, if our other parts of the game would have been better, that game would have easily been us.
And just the communication, again, we keep repeating about that. I just want to quote out from Patrick Mahomes. He said, "I wanted to go and try and score," Mahomes said. "We were in a tough position, and the smart thing was to go halftime, I told him," said the offensive coordinator, "to let me have a chance at it." And he said, "Let's just get back to the locker room and get something going for the second half." So Mahomes, he wanted to do, it was going to be fourth, I think it was 4th and 1, and, we decided to bring the kicking team out, and Mahomes was like, "Nah, I'm going to go for it." But the coordinator, I just think this week I'm hoping that we get everything all situated with all the, miscommunications and disagreements. Hopefully we should have that same mentality by the Bucs game. Yeah, no, there's been a little bit of that, just throughout certain games. If you want to hear what Jonathan Taylor, he only had 71 yards on us, which averages about 3.4 yards per down. Oh, wow. Or that's average per play. And in his career, he's currently at 5.2 for average. So, just for comparison, like, we actually did a pretty great job. And he had 21 attempts too. So, like, the fact that he didn't get that much on that many attempts, we did a fantastic job on that. Our defense. Yeah. And then after this game, our power ranking went from being number 2 in the NFL to number 5 behind the Packers, which I still think is pretty good for the Chiefs going to week 4. We're in the top 5, and we can rebound ourselves. Who's the top 3 then? I think, number 1 is definitely the Eagles, and then number 2 is the Dolphins. And then it's the Bills, I'm assuming. Yep, the Bills, and then 4 is Packers, yeah. I would honestly like to disagree with the power rankings. I will agree with the top 3 maybe. Maybe I'd have Bills and Chiefs tied on, being honestly. Yeah. And I understand I might have a bias on this, but I don't think Green Bay did have a decent performance against
Tom Brady and the Bucks. Do not get me wrong or anything. But you go look at who Tampa Bay was missing.
Some key players.
And Tom Brady tried to come back, and they only lost by 2 points. So I'm not the most convinced that the Packers. Do I think they'll be cleaning up throughout the year? I think so. I mean, they still have Aaron Rodgers, who's generally really good during the regular season. But it's also shocking me that we only have based off 3 weeks of games. And, the Packers got obliterated on prime time by the Vikings. And they barely just squeaked by a Buccaneers team that had so many injuries and stuff like that and had a suspension.
Right.
And so it's just that's where I don't fully agree with the rankings. But
yeah.
Because we at least obliterated one opponent. We won against the Chargers, we'll get to that, but... And then we were coming off this game. Yeah, we lost and it wasn't the greatest performance, but I think...
Because I think power ranking is also based off of, the wins and a little bit of performance. A lot of the losing teams, if they lose by just a hair, they still have a lot of potential in them to, be Super Bowl contenders or even playoff contenders. Because it's still really early in the NFL season. To put everything hands down, what the playoff picture is going to be, and anything could happen.
Right. At the end of the day, the playoffs are based off your record, so it's going to be very interesting to see how all that looks towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm honestly curious to see, if the Raiders can pull it off. They're the only team with an 0-3 record for the season.
Yeah, there just needs to seem some gelling over there with the new coach, new receiver, I think they will get better as the season progresses, but we're gonna find out. Right.
It's just crazy how, everyone was all hyped saying, AFC West is stacked. I mean, a lot of these teams are stacked, including the AFC West. A lot of changes did happen during the preseason.
All 3 teams tried building rosters to try to take down the Chiefs. Yeah. And the Chiefs, we've had some people exit, like Tyrann Mathieu on our defense. It's now at New Orleans. We had Tyreek Hill, who's our biggest playmaker, is now a Miami Dolphin. Right. So, while everyone was gaining people and it seemed like we were losing people, and I was just like, okay, well, the Chiefs are just going to suck this year because they don't have these people. So, yeah.
But that also opened the door for new rookies and wide receivers, too, for Mahomes to, I would say test. He's, right now, I feel like he does want to figure out, this way of throwing the ball, because if he's able to throw the ball to any wide receiver and run with a touchdown, for example, Sky Moore, Juju Smith, Travis Kelce, if you get those 3 key players all running, even our running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he can throw the ball and he can still catch it pretty decently. If you get 4 players like that, then it's going to be tough for the other team to figure out, this particular target, because, every game last year was mainly Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
That's all it pretty much was. Maybe some Mecole Hardman here and there, maybe. Or who, I'm trying to remember who else. I think they had one other, but we also had Clyde when he wasn't injured. Right. And so and we also had some other running backs too last year that really helped. But this year, and it's not only just those. You also have MVS, which we're still waiting for some more production, but I think we're gonna get out of him pretty sooner rather than later. And then you also had I keep switching up to J names, the Jay Watsons, but the one that's on offense. Since Patrick Mahomes, threw him a touchdown against the Chargers, I'm sure he'll get some other touchdowns soon too. And I want to see a little bit more from Sky Moore as well. I mean, what we've seen from him has been pretty decent so far.
Yeah.
But I think there's other things that he could work on. But I'm excited to see him get better throughout the season, throughout his rookie year.
Mm-hmm. And once he gets the feel, because he's new to the NFL, once he gets the feel of it, because, every losing team has a story to build that momentum to a winning season. I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to have a losing season, but every game that they lose, all the players learn from it, and they will build up that motivation to go, I would say, avenge that loss.
Oh yeah, no. Creed Humphrey, the center for our O-line, he was talking to media today after practice, and he's like, yeah, this team's been super dialed in and just focused and just learning from that loss. And their practices have been so great this week leading up to the next game.
Yeah, I've been hearing much about it. I think this next game against the Bucs, this will be they haven't played each other since Super Bowl 55, which that was a blowout football
multiple
game.
Reasons.
Yes. So hopefully we could go there and take the steal and win. But at the same time, the Tampa Bay area and the west coast of Florida, they've recently been hit by a hurricane. And I just feel like the NFL should, give them respect to, at least delay the game. I would think delaying the game to a better time to go help them repair instead of having a game. But there are people in Florida who would want to go to a football game. There are some people who are like that. But at the same time, I think it's mindful, to go help everyone and repair the damage.
Right. Well, and I've seen some Twitter discussions based off that. First off, praying for those in Florida. Second off, someone tried making a point of if Gainesville was to do that, should Gainesville not have a football game or whatnot? And it's Gainesville's in a different part of Florida. Tampa Bay, where most of the damage has been so far, is an hour, if not less, than from the damage. It may not have been completely directly hit, but it is very close. It's pretty close, considered pretty close to some of the damage.
Right.
And if you look at Fort Myers, it's the pier's completely washed out.
It was
everything's gone.
It was ripped out by the hurricane because I was actually studying the winds down there. They had over 160 up to 180 mile per hour wind gusts with waves coming from the ocean flooding the coastline. It was hell down there.
Oh yeah. Well, and there's also been tornadoes too, and I actually have a friend that's currently living in Orlando, and that's where it's also being majorly hit. And she was showing me pictures of it, of all this rain and some of the tornadoes, and she's like, "Yeah, I feel like I'm back in Kansas," but yeah, maybe some Florida wanted to be there, but I'm also thinking, I also saw this point too, and I think it's a great point. If all these people that are going to a football game, would they be impeding the rescue? If they're just constantly driving to a stadium, especially since it is pretty close, you gotta think of that too, and just the damage. And I feel like the NFL should just. I understand. Yeah, this game is money. I get that, but where's the ethics of this? They should have moved Tampa Bay completely out.
Right.
And because they had time to make the decision. My question is, why wasn't it done sooner? They should have, I get it's a day-by-day basis, but I feel like it should have been moved out sooner. And,
yeah, I agree with you.
And honestly, I feel like that's just also impending, state resources that are going for the victims, and just for, the relief. But that's just my 2 cents on that. I just also think the NFL just values money over the people.
Right. I definitely agree with you because money does talk through the NFL, and just, even taking a moment of silence, I'm hoping if they're going to go with this game, which it is so far, I just hope they take a moment of silence for the victims, because I know there's going to be people who were killed from the storm, and, it's like, I don't want to compare it to any other natural disasters because, people were more prepared about this storm, but at the same time, we just got to be mindful about, the effectiveness of what this hurricane did an hour away from where the game is. So
yeah, natural disasters are just very sad.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the NFL should at least give like somewhat percentage of their income to the victims.
Agreed.
And rebuild Florida.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what happens on Sunday. And I actually have a prediction score, and I do have a biased view that the Chiefs are going to win. It's going to be a close one to 21-24, and I think it's going to be by a field goal kick if we have Harrison Butker up on board. Because I think both sides were going to be battling each other. It could also be a game kind of like the Chargers where we're pretty much dead until the fourth quarter, and we're lucky to get an interception. We don't know.
No, I was hoping it'd be like the Arizona game.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be that type of blowout, but I think there's a lot of news sources I've been looking at, and a lot of people are, of course, they're for Brady because, he's been in the NFL for so many years and hasn't. I mean, yes, Brady lost his game last week, but they're going to try to get a win too. So they're going to do their best. We're going to do our best too. So this game is going to be so close.
Right. Well, I mean, they are getting Mike Evans, I believe, back for after the suspension from the New Orleans game.
Which is stupid because he should have a further penalty than
Willie Gay hitting a vacuum for 4 games. Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think just in the general, just money talks. That's controversial.
Well, I mean, go look at Tom Brady. How many tablets has he destroyed in his career? Probably tons.
Yeah,
and they've only had those on like the sidelines since like I know they had their personal ones like during COVID actually. So like it's really started to become more popular like since then, and that's especially when the Brady throwing the tablet memes have started coming out.
Just letting go all the hate,
which was also against the New Orleans Saints, so he just hates them.
Yeah, that's their rival team of the Buccaneers. It's crazy. It always happens. But anyhow, I hope that the Chiefs win this weekend, and I pray those who were affected by the storm that everything will get better, and it will. It's going to take a while for them. And just hopefully the Chiefs can win. And thank you, Emily, for joining this podcast.
Absolutely.
It's been an honor and having a great convo so far. And I'll talk to y'all later on to the Knights of Chiefs Kingdom. Have a good evening.